Hello and welcome to the Curator Salon podcast. I'm Geeta Joshi, your host. And today my guest is artist Prachi Gothi, who is a London-based abstract painter, and I'm really excited to talk to her today. Welcome, Prachi.
Hello, Geeta. Thank you for having me on your pod.
You're very welcome. Um, let's talk about your work. First, let's start with how do you describe your work and what have people said about it?
So, I am an abstract painter. I make large, energetic paintings exploring the dichotomy and coexistence of conflicting human emotions through a vibrant yet somewhat restrained color palette. Um, I try to capture the singular form in a state of flux, as if in the process of becoming something else.
I know you haven't always made abstract art. Can you take us back to your original training and then how that's evolved, how your practice has evolved through your different experiences?
I did my in fine art from Mumbai, and it was a foundation course with a 4 year degree. And it was quite traditional in a sense that we were taught anatomy and then life drawing, and then there was another subject called creative painting. So the drawing and anatomy bit was, painting from life. So literally 5 hours, 3 days to sit and finish your painting. So I had great interest in that. And then cut to the creative painting side. I was always interested in abstraction, but it was really like I couldn't connect because the type of advice that I'd sort of received was very meditative when it came to abstract painting. I mean, to give you an example, like things I read and spoke to my professors was try and paint nothingness and emptiness, and flatness is the depth of the mind, and things like that, which I was extremely enamored by. But I couldn't get my head around these things because it was okay not to speak about your painting as well then. Like it was okay not to write about it. Um, and so I was 20 something. And if anything, I wasn't feeling nothingness. I was feeling a lot of things. So, yes. And it's not like wrong advice or anything. They were right because they were all in there. These artists that I used to take advice from, and not just my professors, I would go out and take critique from other artists that I admired as well. And they were in their late 60s, and they were probably in of that mindset. And the books that they asked me to read said these kind of words that I couldn't understand. So there was this massive disconnect between portraiture and this creative sort of drawing that I was painting that I was expected to do. And I thought that what they were saying was the gospel truth. And so I wrote my thesis, and, I was actually a merit student, and that worked out okay. But I knew that something didn't fit well and that something didn't feel right.
That's so interesting, though, isn't it? Like they're sort of teaching like the theories and things like that of abstract painting, but of those that existed, from their generation, right? From probably the 60s and 70s and so on.
Exactly. And that's exactly what it was. And I struggled to internalize what I was painting. I think, yeah.
And then you mentioned like what I think you referred to it as like traditional um, art school, or that element of where you're doing the figurative, drawing from life, drawing from sculptures and all of that as really a model of teaching or a model of learning that was, very much associated with the, I don't know, like 19th century, like academy schools and things like that. You've also referred to that as, in a previous conversation we had, as a focus on the decorative. Can you talk a bit more about that?
That I think was actually really, in hindsight now, that was really beneficial to me because I can actually paint. And I think toward the end of my degree, when we were painting so much from life, and not only that, we used to go to uni. We used to go to different beautiful cities in India for trips, and we used to paint landscape in situ. And so it eventually became not just about capturing the landscape, but about the atmosphere. And similarly about portraiture as well. Like I started seeing color that wasn't just skin tone on the model. And so I think my sense of color has really, like portraiture has really, really helped and enhanced my sense of color. And I think today when I paint, I can see a lot of that stemming from the traditional learning. So I am, in a sense, really thankful that, I was taught this way.
Amazing. So then after leaving art school in India, in Mumbai, you moved to London. How was that experience?
So it was very interesting because I'd never been out of the country. 23 years, I had never taken a plane before, a flight before. It was my first time out. And I knew the one thing that I told myself is that I am going to go there with a blank mind. I'm going to try and absorb as much as I can, rather than going in with preconceived notions that are very meditative about abstract painting. And so, cut to Chelsea College of Art and Design. I am submitting my first draft of my critical research paper, and my lovely professor, John Cousins, amazing PhD scholar, literally trashed my paper, the first draft. And that was the jolt that I needed, because, and I'm thankful that I took it really, really positively, because that is literally the critique that I was looking for. And he said, this isn't what you believe. This is what you've been told. This is what you've read. This isn't what you've experienced. Go read blah, go read this, and give me a proper conclusion to how you've come to this statement when you say abstraction is nothingness. What do you mean? And I was like, oh my God, the penny has dropped. He's right. Like, what do I mean? And so then, from then on, my really interesting journey. And I think the great thing about Chelsea was that they didn't just encourage painting. It was an MA in fine art. So they really pushed me to explore different media. Actually, I pushed myself because it was a self-led course, but they really encouraged that idea. So that's when my journey began. And I tried everything under the sun. So I went and tried sculpture in ceramic, in wax. I did some video installation. I did a lot of collage because I was very inspired by Anthony Tappius at the time. And I think I needed to do all of that, because then finally, again, when I was introspecting, I realized that what I am trying to express, I can express best in the medium of painting. And that's how I came back to painting, but my painting was never the same again. And I think that I think the way I've always sort of functioned, in a sense, is I go on and try different things and then strip them off when I realize this is not what I'm supposed to do. And I think that gives me a lot of clarity. And so, yeah.
That's so cool. I think I found that as well, where you try lots of things and then that actually helps you filter out the things that don't work and the ones that feel good for you, whether they keep you in flow or you just have an intuitive sense about how that is going to look or how that works.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
And also, like the traditional, like muted colors, for example, were considered very intellectual colors in India. And at the time, and again, I don't speak for all of India because it's a vast country, just the people that I was connected to. And the art now is amazing, and the galleries there are now, amazing. But at the time where I was, and so to break away from that, I just started with a bright patch of neon pink, because that brings a bit of artificiality to so it kind of breaks that intimacy that you have when you're looking at a work, when something really neon and fluorescent comes in. And I think so that's how my palette has sort of grown and evolved. And there's a big mix of a lot of somber tones along with very bright tones in my works, although it's predominantly vibrant. But yeah.
So visually, how did your work evolve between leaving, the experience at Chelsea and then what you're known for now?
So, like I said, I just had to break away from preconceived notions, and we were taught a very compositional style of painting, which is all great to understand design and sense of color and everything. But there were rules such as don't have dark patches on the edges of the canvas, for example, so that the viewer's eye isn't sort of taken away, and all of these things which I just had to just do the exact opposite of. So that sort of really helped me to break away from like a very long-lived traditional style, deep-rooted style of painting that I was pursuing. Also, I mentioned portraiture. So if you go back to one of the paintings on my Instagram, on my website, it's called Untitled 4. That was my initial journey into this style of work, where it started off with a really realistic portrait of my husband and then covered up with layers of paint. And you can still see the eye. So, so that gave me a very different window to what I was exploring. And then my then visiting professor, Dexter Dalwood, he had visited India and he knew where I was coming from. And when he saw the work, he said, Prachi, these lines, I really believe in them. And I think that was like a goosebump moment and a push that I definitely needed. And I knew that I was in the right direction. And finally, now I do not have consciously any realistic forms lurking about in the painting, because I don't want to give the viewer a hook. I think Duchamp called it viewer responsibility, where the onus is on the viewer when you look at the work, where, you kind of don't have a hook. So that's how my work has sort of evolved. But it did take a lot of like pushing and pulling to get to this point. And then I realized that the scale of the canvases really mattered to me as well. And I get really immersed in the work. And most of my canvases are larger than me. And my degree show works were all 7 feet tall. And I think that the performative aspect in them and the larger the canvas, the more you can sort of fit in. But I love that the viewer has to actually stop and soak it in. Like the more chaotic, the slower the viewer gets to explore your work. So that's something, and that's how I think my work is sort of unfurled, and I'm still exploring, and we'll see what happens.
I love that. I think I find this with a lot of artists when they start using larger canvases, it actually becomes much more of a physical expression as well, in that you have to literally physically sort of stretch around and move around the space yourself as the maker.
Definitely.
And the reference to Dexter Dalwood, I have him in the other room, actually.
Oh, wow. Oh, lovely.
Mm-hmm.
I was just lucky to have him as my visiting professor.
Yeah, for sure. So after you graduated as an artist from Chelsea, what happened?
So out of the 55 students at the degree show, I think only 3 of us managed to sell our works, and I was one of them, luckily, and pretty much sold out my degree show. And then from there, I was really lucky, actually. I got invited to another group show, and also to participate in the Arts for India auction that was held at the Kensington Palace. And a couple of agents I spoke to who came across my work as well, and managed to sell some works through them. So it was, we were off to a decent start, I think. But obviously, you're living in London, you need to sort of survive. So I decided to go get a job. And I only wanted to stay within the art sector. So I went and applied at Saatchi Gallery and started off as an intern. Ended up working there for 6.5 years. Initially started off part-time and literally worked my way up to eventually being the business development manager slash press officer, wherein every project that was happening in the gallery had to be overseen by me. And I think just evolving to that position was such a great experience, because I now have an idea of the behind the scenes of working in a museum scale art gallery. And career wise, eventually I'm very driven and ambitious. So I realized I could not sort of work part-time, give it my all, and then go to the studio part-time and give it my all. That's just not how I could function. So I decided if I wanted to do something really well, I had to give it, my full-time attention. And so when this opportunity came about of working very closely with the CEO, I gave up, the idea of working part-time, took it up full-time. And I really, again, I experienced such wonderful experiences through exhibitions. I worked with a lot of corporate patrons. I worked with a lot of journalists. I was speaking to a lot of artists, and it was a great space for me career-wise. I definitely was peaking at that time. But a year and a half after doing that role, and after speaking so closely to artists, and every time I would pick up the phone to promote their work, there would be like this sinking feeling inside me, like, I want to be on that side. I want to be the artist getting promoted. I don't want to be promoting them. And that was slowly and surely eating me up. And I think it was a real struggle to finally then come to the conclusion that this experience is great, but eventually I think I'm a painter, and that is what I need to do. So I discussed with my husband and took the very difficult decision of quitting my full-time job and getting headfirst into painting.
Such an interesting journey. I mean, as fascinating as it would have been to, be working on that side of the exhibitions at Saatchi Gallery. I think these triggers are here to always teach us. It's like every conversation you were having with an artist and getting that sinking feeling was actually a nudge from spirit or something to tell you, where you needed to be. That's so awesome. And so brave as well, really, in London, when financially it's a very expensive city to be in, to take the plunge and go full time. How is that working out for you?
That's been interesting, because then I now have a 2-year-old son. So I was on a bit of a maternity break. But now that my son goes, and then obviously we had lockdown, but now that my son is going a few days a week to nursery, I am able to get some time in the studio. And the days that he does not go to nursery, I make it a point to go in the evening, sometimes as late as 8 in the evening, and then I work up until midnight or 1 p.m., which is great because my studio building has 24-hour access. So it's working out all right for me so far.
COVID. So in terms of, obviously, as a self-representing artist, you have been marketing. I know you took part in some fairs, and we'll get to that shortly. But how has COVID affected things for you? Or this certain lockdown period, if we go back to earlier in the year, like March, April.
Yeah, so that was when I had just begun, finding my feet again. And I was really excited to get my work out there and, start this amazing journey. And then lockdown happened, which was a bit of a bummer for everybody, I think. And I remember texting one of my friends, asking him if there were any online opportunities that I could, participate in, because how else do I get my work out there? and he didn't know of any. And then I just came across this Instagram account called the Be Art Show, and I didn't know anyone from this. So the deadline to apply was literally the day I came across them. And so I ran to the studio, clicked a few pictures of my work. And luckily, my studio's a 40-minute walk away, so I could do that. And submitted, and they really liked my work, and I got selected. And then the next thing I knew, I was on a Zoom call with 7 or 8 amazing artists who were, very well connected and who knew each other from the longest time. And it was amazing. They were welcoming. And I think actually lockdown in a strange way has worked out probably nicer for me than if we didn't have lockdown, because of this the art show. And the show itself gave me a lot of exposure because people from all over the world attended. So that was amazing.
The art show was great, and I think it got stronger with every edition of it as well. They really fine-tuned what they were doing. They always had great artists from the beginning, some of our mutual friends, Gary Mansfield, Michael Wallner. It's it's a really cool, it's a really cool arrangement. I think it was really personal when we went into I went in as a visitor, to see you guys. And it was just really good, and I think that the artists they'd chosen always sat well together, but they'd rightly also picked people that were confident talking about their work as well. Because I think not all artists are in that place, but it was awesome. I'm not sure if it's still going, but do you know if it's still going?
No, because now we can go out and about. So I think we decided that right now, because physical shows are happening. So it possibly could go ahead again.
Okay, let's wait and see.
Yeah.
And you're also taking part in Roy's Art Fair coming up soon as well.
Yes. I was really, 5 years ago, if you asked me to take part in an art fair, I would have just said a blank no. But because I was very averse to the idea of fairs because of the incongruous setup of artworks and the fact that it's always so busy. But I really like to push myself, and I realized, well, if it's crowded, it's actually good, because imagine the exposure that, social media is great, but the demographic of people that will come through to this art fair probably may not even be on social media, or maybe definitely will be people who haven't seen my work on social media and will now get a chance to sort of follow what I do. And also the fact that I realized that I can hang my work and curate my space in the way I want it to, so that it does not look chaotic. So that that actually created this shift in perspective, and I'm really excited to see how that experience happens.
Well, there's going to certainly be crowd control, I guess, this time around, but I'm really looking forward to it, actually, and it's great that it's still going ahead. So I will see you there for sure. Prachi,
Lovely.
what have you got coming up?
So apart from this, because it's so uncertain in these times, definitely in 2021, I am up for applying for more art fairs. And I've also applied for a few open calls, so we shall see.
Brilliant. Prachi, thank you so much for being my guest on the podcast. I will add links to your website and social and all those things in the show notes. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Geeta. It was an absolute pleasure and an honor. Thank you.
The Curator's Salon hopes you enjoyed this production.